My spouse, who's 32 years old at the time of this incident, befriended a girl during her college years, and they both partied like there was no tomorrow. It's surprising that my wife didn't fail her classes due to their wild ways. Meanwhile, I worked at I-35 and met my wife on her first day at work. After being there for a few years, I helped her get accustomed to the work environment. We eventually tied the knot, and this is where the story begins. 6 years into our marriage, her fun-loving college friend finally got engaged. My wife was taken aback when she learned that her friend was willing to settle down and possibly include her in the wedding party. As a couple, we had agreed early on that she wouldn't maintain a close relationship with her friend for the sake of our own relationship. One night, shortly after finding out about her friend's engagement, she informed me that she would be spending the evening at her parents' house and returning after dinner. It didn't seem unusual, so I agreed to it. However, when I returned home from work and took out the trash, I noticed a postcard peeking out from the side of the bag. My curiosity got the best of me, so I read the postcard through the plastic and discovered that it was an invitation to a bachelorette party scheduled for that very night at a men's strip club in the city. I didn't want my wife to be ogling other men or reverting to her former partying ways, so I immediately drove to the venue. Next fair, I began inquiring with women present about my wife or the bride by name. Eventually, I came across a woman who informed me that they had left the party a short while earlier with 2 men. However, when I asked her where they had gone, she seemed hesitant to reveal any information. After pleading and offering bribes, the woman finally divulged the name of the hotel where my wife and her friends had gone. I was in disbelief that this was happening. Asking I closed an extra tease, I repeatedly called my wife's phone while heading to the hotel's lobby, but she didn't answer. Upon arrival, I asked the receptionist for the room number, but she refused to disclose it. So I waited anxiously until I spotted my wife walking out of the elevator with a man who appeared quite pleased, and my wife shared his demeanor until she caught sight of me standing in their way. She gasped, covering her mouth, and burst into tears that she couldn't control. When I realized the man was not her friend's fiancé, confusion about what had transpired led me to ask my wife for an explanation. But she seemed paralyzed. Finally, she managed to speak, admitting that she had made a poor decision to attend the party and asking if we could leave to discuss it. When I pressed her for details about what had occurred, she simply stared at me, unable to answer. As she attempted to lead me out of the lobby, by taking my hand, I pulled away and declared that I wouldn't tolerate such behavior. I declared that I wouldn't take her home if she had been unfaithful. She was utterly distraught and unable to function. My wife broke down in tears and sat on the lobby floor, unable to cope with the situation. Her friend was shocked to see her in such a state, and it was then that the truth emerged. My wife had lied to her friend about our agreement to distance herself from her wild college days. Our relationship was damaged, and we spent months apart. Eventually, we found ourselves sitting in my car. But before I could drive, my wife confessed that she couldn't resist the temptation to have some fun with her friend, despite knowing that I would disapprove of such behavior and that it went against our wedding vows. She explained that after years of marriage, she had been longing for some excitement in her life. But in pursuit of that excitement, she had made a poor choice and lied to me. I summed up her actions by telling her that she had cheated on me because she was bored and dissatisfied with our relationship. I made it clear that I was finished and wouldn't forgive her for what she had done. I no longer wanted to be married to her, and she started to wail. Eventually, I asked her to get out of the car, and I drove away. Her brother allowed her to stay with him, but he eventually came to my house to collect her belongings a week later. After a month, he grew tired of having her live with him. My wife was miserable and couldn't find the strength to go to work or feel any sense of hope for the future. She frequently called me, inquiring about my activities and pleading to visit me. However, I declined every time as I didn't want her around me or be influenced to reconcile. After she displayed her cunning nature, I couldn't risk anything. I kept refusing until I eventually stopped answering her calls. I have no intention of being exploited again, but this experience taught me that I cannot control my partner's actions. I understand that the only thing I can do is trust myself and defend myself if necessary. Although I loved my ex-wife for many years, I knew that I could feel the same way for someone else someday. It's been 2 years, and my ex-wife still resides at her brother's place. Unfortunately, they now despise each other, and she has grown resentful that I never forgave her for a night of revelry, even though I believed she deserved to enjoy herself. On social media, she now preaches about the evils of partying and drinking. I'm sorry that your wife deceived you and chose to cheat on you during her friend's bachelorette party. She made it evident that her desires, regardless of how inappropriate they were more significant to her than you. But when she was caught, she only felt remorseful because she didn't expect to get caught. She became bitter because she didn't think her actions would result in unfavorable consequences. She portrayed the years spent together as if it was a burden, and no one should have to feel that way. But what she did was utterly unjust and cannot be forgiven. I'm relieved that you discovered the invitation and eventually found out the truth. Although it was a difficult experience, at least you were able to uncover the truth on your own. It was smart of you not to allow her to come back into your life, even for a moment. Moving forward, I wish you all the best for today's second story. That in my story, my 27-year-old wife struggled with constantly comparing herself to her younger, more attractive sister, Madison, who is still single and pursuing her dream career. Retribution 6-day crusadie. Despite her achievements and a considerable following on TikTok, my wife couldn't help but feel annoyed by her younger sister's success. However, she never acknowledged these feelings towards her sister. Sometimes she would confide in me, but would quickly retract her words by expressing her love for Madison. My wife even went to the extent of asking me, both while we were dating and after we got married, if I wished I had met her sister instead. Whenever my wife asked me if I wished I had met her sister instead, I always reassured her that I believed we were meant to be together, and that she deserved a happy life, regardless of what sister was doing with hers. Literally, my wife never really understood the message I was trying to convey. She would constantly stalk her sister's social media and compare our life to other people's. However, when speaking to her sister directly, she would be supportive and never show any signs of jealousy. Things started to unravel when Madison got engaged and we arranged to meet them for dinner. Madison's fiancé was a successful and well-put-together man, which only added to my wife's insecurities. Even though they seemed well-suited and I was genuinely happy for them, my wife wasn't. She pretended to be happy, but as soon as we got in the car, she became distant and spent most of the ride on her phone. I suspected she was stalking Madison's fiancé on social media. Thus, over the next few weeks, my wife started to act more friendly towards me again. However, during that time, she met with her sister a few times without me while I was at work. This is the initial instance when she didn't inform me about her departure was discovered by me when I was working late. The Transtheclasis Briley, the security alarm system, had a record of all our movements, which indicated that she had left the house. After noticing this happening twice more, I inquired with her about the situation. She mentioned that she had been meeting with Madison as she was beginning to have doubts regarding her trust in her fiancé. This confused me as they seemed content and secure with each other during our previous encounters. Subsequently, while my wife was supposedly meeting with Madison, I began to examine Madison's Facebook profile. She appeared content with her partner and even posted cheerful updates about their wedding planning progress. Eventually, I messaged her inquiring whether she was currently with her sister. In response, she denied it and inquired why I was asking. At that moment, I felt a sinking feeling in my heart, and I explained that she had mentioned meeting up with her sister a few times during the week. I could sense her growing concern as she disclosed that her fiancé had been going to the gym more frequently. She informed me that she was attempting to contact him, but unfortunately, he did not respond. We were unable to determine the location of either of them. She went to the gym hoping to find Abe, but he wasn't there. With no other leads, we decided to wait for them to return home. Later, Madison texted me that App had arrived at her house at the same time my wife pulled into her driveway. When my wife walked in, I tried to remain calm, but my voice started cracking, and I ended up yelling at her. I confronted her, telling her that I knew she wasn't with her sister and that her fiancé was missing too. To my surprise, she had the audacity to accuse me of having feelings for her sister, since I'd messaged her earlier before I could even utter a word. She informed me that I could have sistered now since she wanted a divorce. I was completely taken aback by her words. I told her that I didn't have any romantic interest in Madison, and she only helped me realize that she had been lying to me. I demanded to know where my wife was and why she suddenly wanted a divorce. She revealed that App, Madison's fiancé, had fallen in love with her and realized how much better she was compared to her younger sister, who had commitment issues. I looked at her directly in the eyes and expressed my disbelief and disgust for taking her sister's man away from her when they seemed to be genuinely happy together. I insulted her and as a result she slapped me and hastily left the house with luggage she had prepared in advance. Her behavior was absurd, as if she thought that by leaving me as quickly as possible, she could be with App forever. I contacted Madison, who surprisingly answered my call despite being in the middle of a heated argument with App. I overheard him apologizing to her for something. Madison dismissed him and went into another room to inform me of what had transpired. She revealed that my wife had persuaded App to meet with her a few times to get to know the man her younger sister was going to marry. Ter helpen outmips. According to Madison, my wife had told App that she wanted to keep their interactions a secret from both her and me because she believed we would overreact. She then persuaded him to have sex with her as some twisted test to prove his love for Madison. I was in disbelief hearing this disturbing revelation. I apologized to Madison on behalf of my wife, who had ruined her plans of marrying the man of her dreams. App expressed immediate regret and begged Madison for forgiveness. She was crying on the phone, and I asked her what we should do next. Without much hesitation, Madison informed me that she was ending her relationship with App. I shared with her my next course of action, but it was omitted from the text. I shared with her that I had divorced my wife because neither of them deserved us. We made a pact to support each other and emerge from this experience with newfound wisdom. 1 year later, Madison and I have been regularly seeing each other, and our relationship has slowly blossomed into a romance. Meanwhile, Alex moved away as soon as he realized that Madison wouldn't forgive him. He completely disregarded the idea of finding a place with my wife because he viewed her as nothing more than a mistake. And once he realized his true feelings, he left her and she began relentlessly calling me multiple times a day, pleading for sleepovers or meetings over coffee and cake. I consistently declined her requests and only answered her calls when she wouldn't stop dialing. However, she eventually escalated to camping in my yard, prompting me to obtain a restraining order. Even after the divorce was finalized, she persisted in camping in the yard, leading to a chaotic incident when her sister came to visit me. Before I was ready to contact the authorities if she attempted to enter the house, but fortunately, she didn't pose much of a threat since she had to leave due to the restraining order and trespassing. After that, I didn't hear from her again. The most recent update I received was that her father had to bail her out of jail for some foolish act. It's clear that your wife had a rather intense and unstable fixation on her sister's life, which ultimately caused her downfall and confirmed her deepest fear that her sister was a superior woman. Toxic comparisons can drain the goodness out of one's life. As it was your wife's responsibility to be a mature woman who understood the significance of communication, honesty, and selflessness in a marriage. Unfortunately, she also failed to be a supportive and honest sister. Unless she learns to be selfless and honorable, she'll never be able to form a meaningful relationship with anyone. It's important to remain grateful and content with whatever life presents to you,